Hello everyone, how are you doing? This is a question I get all the time here on the channel. If Goku had continued fighting Cell, would he have had any chance of defeating the villain? The most interesting part of this topic isn't even whether Goku would have won or not. In my opinion, what's really important is the message behind the Saiyan's decision not to continue the fight. And you're about to understand why. Before I answer, don't forget to leave a like. Please, for you, it's just one click. But for me, it's what helps this video perform well in the recommendations. Without wasting any time, let's get straight to the point. If Goku had continued fighting Cell, he probably would have died. Yes, I know. It sounds both shocking and predictable at the same time, but the truth is that his condition when he gave up the fight was far from ideal. I believe that at that moment, he was operating at somewhere between 20% and 30% of his full power. His breathing was heavy, and he himself admits that he no longer had enough energy to continue that battle. Now, if Goku had fought strategically, then yes, he would have had a great chance of winning. And what would that strategy look like? Remember that when Cell regenerated after the Kamehameha that destroyed part of his body, he lost a considerable amount of power. Well, Goku could have used that to his advantage. He could have eaten a Senzu bean and immediately returned to 100% of his strength. That would have also given him a Zenkai boost. And if one bean wasn't enough, he could have taken another and another, because Krillin still had a few left. In fact, Krillin himself says, if we give Goku a Senzu bean and all fight Cell together, I'm sure we'll win. And he wasn't completely wrong. There was also the possibility of using the Spirit Bomb, not to mention the help of all the other warriors. So yes, even if Gohan had never fought, there still would have been a possibility of defeating the villain. Of course, we're talking about a hypothetical scenario. But then I started thinking about something else that would have been the easiest path. They could have won through intelligence and strategy. However, that might not have been the best outcome for everyone's future, because what's the point of defeating Cell that way if it means paying a much greater price 7 years later? Exactly. If Gohan had never awakened Super Saiyan 2, nobody would have even known that transformation existed. Of course, by training non-stop, Goku could have eventually reached that level on his own a few years later. But there's a problem. Since he wouldn't have died, he wouldn't have been able to train without limits in the other world. His body would still be subject to physical exhaustion. Unlike the period when he was dead, when he could push his training to the absolute extreme without suffering the same consequences. In fact, Super Saiyan 3 was only possible because Goku was dead. That condition allowed him to push his body far beyond what he could have achieved while alive. Another important point is fusion. Goku might never have learned the fusion dance. Perhaps he would only have known about the Potara fusion, assuming they even survived long enough to reach that point in the story. And even then, they wouldn't necessarily have been as powerful as they were when they became Vegito. Do you see how the easiest path isn't always the best one? Life usually rewards those who choose the difficult path. Because growth comes with difficulty. Many people look at Goku's decision to send Gohan into battle as something absurd, and maybe you think that too, but perhaps you're only looking at the easiest side of the situation, the most logical side. But have you ever heard the saying, the easiest path often leads to the hardest life? Well, by allowing Gohan to face Cell, Goku helped his son discover a power that had always been hidden inside him. It also allowed Goku himself to realize that there was a level beyond Super Saiyan. Something they believed they had already mastered completely after training in the hyperbolic time chamber. In fact, all of that training prepared their bodies to achieve Super Saiyan 2. Without Goku's death, reaching Super Saiyan 3 would have been extremely difficult, and that says a lot about his personality. The reason Goku is so strong is because he is always willing to pay the price for the risks he takes. And what was the risk here? Trusting his son. Allowing someone who didn't even like fighting to face the most powerful enemy on the planet, it was a gamble. And what was the cost? When everything went wrong, Goku accepted responsibility. Remember what he said? I put everyone in this situation, so I'll take the blame. This brings us to another example, Majin Vegeta. When Vegeta accepted Babdi's power to unlock his potential, he was willing to pay any price necessary to gain the strength needed to defeat Goku. And we saw that the cost of that decision was extremely high. The truth is, if Goku had not passed the fight on to Gohan, many things in the story would have changed. And that decision was far from simple. We're talking about someone who gave up a fight, something practically unthinkable for Goku, and it was certainly frustrating for him. But that choice ultimately guided everyone toward a better future. It directly contributed to the character's growth. It allowed them to reach new levels of power, and that applies to Gohan, Goku, and everyone else. Because even though Goku might have been able to defeat Cell through strategy, and without Gohan's help, that shortcut would probably have come at a very high cost in the future, especially 7 years later. And here's a question for you. Do you think Dragon Ball is just a fighting anime? Take a closer look. You'll find some very interesting lessons, and one of them is this. Are you willing to pay the price of pain, risk, and sacrifice to achieve what you want in life? Think about that for a moment. Well everyone, this may be one of the most different videos I've ever made for this channel, but I truly hope you enjoyed it. And if this entire explanation made sense to you, then I think I've earned your like. So make sure to hit that button. Once again, thank you so much to everyone who stayed until the very end. A big thank you, take care, and I'll see you in the next video. Later everyone!